What's the subject today? Well, I thought we would maybe talk about the, too many people on Earth thing, the non-reproduction thing, the stop making more people thing. Well, yeah, that's a good subject. But, I don't know. People just don't get it. It seems pretty obvious, but they just don't get it. So, aren't you just wasting your time? Well, look, it's only 10 minutes. What's the big deal? Well, it takes longer than 10 minutes. You got to upload the video, and then the comments, and then this and that, and it's just, it does suck up some of your life. Yeah, but you got to talk about it. Somebody's got to talk about it or do something about it, so we might as well do something about it, right? Yeah, so maybe we should get to the point. Okay, so the point of the video is, people are having way too many kids for no good reason. Well, I don't know if that's really the point. I think the point to stress is there's no reason to invest in a future for consciousness. Consciousness is doomed. It just can't work. It's fundamentally broken. People have to understand that. Well, people can't understand, what? Think of something. They can't understand it. They don't even understand popsicles, really. But whatever. Snowflakes. They don't even get it. But anyway. Yeah, well, I know, but see, it's too depressing. You can't tell people things that are depressing, and you also can't tell people what to do. See, they think they know they think they know already what's right and wrong, and forever people have been telling them it's right to have kids. Kids is the right thing to do. Yeah, well, whatever. It's not about what people have been saying forever. It's just about having the conversation about what makes sense. And I'm just going to stress the point that it doesn't make any philosophical sense. If you know what we are, which is reproducing machines built by an insane, pretty much, an idiotic, no, that's not even the right word, a completely void of intelligence force, then why would you comply to a force that is completely void of intelligence? It doesn't make any sense. Well, I think you know that most people believe in God, and if they don't believe in God, then they believe in nature. And so they're going to, one way or the other, going to justify the status quo. They're going to keep thinking it makes sense. They're going to keep thinking, well, I like being addicted. It's like even people have the most bizarre psychology. Think, hey, I'm doing okay. They think they're fine, even though they're completely insane. They say, yes, I love living. Well, again, it's really not about what people think. It's about us making an argument to it, and just at least making the counter argument, and trying to point out that that's not rational. It's not reasonable to do things because that's what people have traditionally done, or to think things because that's what people have traditionally thought, is not a justification. It's about making it logically understandable. Yeah, well, I don't know if you're really doing that, though. Are you making it logically understandable? So far we've already wasted how many minutes? And I don't know, 3, and we haven't gotten anywhere. Well, I know, but you keep distracting the conversation by pointing out that it's a conversation. So let's just do the arguing and just quit doing the conversation. So anyway, the point is, okay, so we know what life is. It's a biological process, and that biology is based on chemistry, just physics, just raw mechanical forces. And we're just reproducing machines. We consume and then we reproduce. And that's what a bacteria does. That's what the first cell did, and the first reproducing cell. And that's what we are, and that's all we are. We have this complex psychology just because it was conducive to our survival. Natural selection rewarded it because it made this microbe, this big giant microbe, more successful. Yeah, well, that's all scientific stuff, and they're not paying any attention to science. They don't even know. You say evolution, and they have all kinds of nutty ideas, so it's the old giraffe trying to make its neck longer kind of crap. Some people think even atoms are running around saying, I think I feel like fudge cake today, or they're having emotions and feelings, and wills, and they're deciding to do things for some sort of intent. I mean, it's just, nobody gets it. Yeah, well, that's sort of the problem. But so I guess, look, the equation is like, say if there was a heroin addict in your life, and you just saw how miserable he was, and he was just like, no, he didn't want to die, he just wanted more heroin. And so you got to try to explain to him that, look, you're in a situation, you'll never get unaddicted. Like, say if that was the rule, you couldn't get unaddicted, you couldn't make him unaddicted. So what are you going to do? How are you going to explain to him that chasing the heroin isn't making you isn't a life? It isn't a life worth living, because the desire is still in him, and as long as he has that desire, he's going to keep thinking he's accomplishing something. Yeah, well, that's the problem, isn't it? It's really hard when everybody has some sort of relative meter for twisting and turning and bending, reality to suit their standards, and their standards can be really, unreasonable. Well, that's the problem. Is it unreasonable? I mean, how do we establish a reasonable risk? I mean, I might argue. Let's say if 50% of mountain climbers died trying to climb the mountain, you could say, well, that's unreasonable to climb mountains, because it's, there's 50% chance you're going to die, and all you're going to do is get really cold, and you're going to run out of oxygen, and then you get to the top, and yeah, it'll be great for about 5 minutes, and you say, yeah, it looks kind of samey, I really got it. It seems like a lot of work for nothing. And so a rational person might say, well, that's kind of silly. But people would still do it, right? Yeah, well, again, it's not about what people do. It's just trying to make illustrate that it is just an addiction. It's just something they're attracted to, that there's a force inside of them that compels them to do it. And it's not a rational force. It's not a logical force. It's not anything intellectual. It's built out of a desire, out of a need that's inside of them. And this is how the need expresses itself in terms of this. Yes, I will rationalize and excuse any kind of bullshit because, we're here and we have to do that. Yeah, well, we don't have to do it, and it's, but yeah, that's the whole thing. It gets caught up into the popularity of it, I would say, as part of it, that whole idea of tradition. Because people can't even contemplate the argument, because there isn't enough dissenting voices out there to even get them to even consider the fact that they might be completely full of shit. That their desire is, really pointless and stupid. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. You can't really call desire pointless and stupid, because people say, hey, wait a minute, no, desire is fun. Because they're so caught up in the cycle of addiction. It's like you can't explain to the drunk that the drink is no good, because he's going to say, no, the drink is good, I want the drink. It's like you and your cigarettes. Well, it's true. I mean, it's a physical addiction, it's not psychological, but yeah, that's the same syndrome. And most of our psychological addictions are based on a physical need. And it's just our psychology is expressing that need with a little bit of flair, and nuance and eccentricity. But yeah, it's basically just bullshit. Yeah, well, this video is pretty bullshitty. You probably should end it pretty soon, just because, it's convoluted and strange, and, there's no real point in doing it this way. I mean, you really should edit it or something. It's kind of lazy. It's funny that, your voice is, mine's a little cracking, too. But anyway, yeah, okay, it's not a great way to do a video, but so what? We're lazy, and we don't feel like editing and having a conversation that way, because it's a lot of work. And no one's going to watch it anyway. I mean, not many people, so what's the point in doing the work? No, I agree completely. You did this once before, I think, out of your 1,300 videos. You did this one other time, and it was a bit insane. So, I mean, that sort of diminishes the argument. When you're kind of insane, in your presentation, then people won't take the argument seriously. Yeah, well, I don't think it matters, okay? I mean, they're not going to take the argument seriously because they're just so caught up in the presumptions. All the assumptions that are just built into everyday life. You know, it's people get the idea that this psychological bullshit is like gravity or something, like it's a reality, like it's a real force, like it's a real fact of life. Life is good, and they just assume it, and they don't even appreciate that there might be some equation that says, well, wait a minute though, if 2 out of 100 humans, you know, are horribly miserable, like Poeskian nightmare miserable, do you really have the right to take that risk, like a 1 in 50 chance of creating a miserable human being, when you consider the average human being is just some sort of mediocre thing that's just kind of, you know, it chases and it succeeds sometimes and it fails, but it's just running through the motions. Well, I think that's a good point. Is, you know, it really is about the average day of your life. I mean, people really have to concentrate on what is the average. I mean, what is the substance of their life? And you know, they can, through psychology, you know, try to make it all fun and games. But when they really look at it, if they really examine the chart of their life, I mean, it's got so much crap in it. And those are the good lives. Those are just the mediocre ones. I mean, not the really hard, miserable ones. Yeah, well, people aren't going to really appreciate the hard, miserable stuff, though. You know, they just look at it and say, you know. I mean, they think about, oh, yeah, well, if I didn't have a home and I had to live on the street, wouldn't that be rough? But they really don't think about what it's like to do that 24 hours a day, you know, and just how rotten a life that is. Yeah, well, the key thing is people don't really consider all this stuff because they're selfish pricks. Yeah, well, maybe we'll work on that in the next video. So anyway, I guess the point of this video is to tell people, well, we're not really telling people anything, right? Because no one gives a fuck. It's just our opinion. So the point of the video is to suggest. Yeah, suggesting is a good idea. We're just trying to create a suggestion in their head that maybe they should be a little careful about reproducing. It's not something to do because you want to, or you want unconditional love, or you want a baby, or all this. No. You got to come up with a better excuse than that, because it's a high-risk behavior. You're committing yourself not only to the welfare of something else, a new life, but you really are taking a risk. I mean, you know, you're gonna, some of those kids, you know, and you're gonna win. So you don't win all the good lotteries. Sometimes you win the bad lotteries. And some of those kids are going to be destined to live pretty miserable lives. Yeah, I think, you know, it's a fact. I mean, the people who are willing to take risks and people who are cautious about risk, and I guess that's the difference. I mean, people who are trying to maximize gain and people who are trying to minimize losses. Yeah, that's really the whole thing right there. People have to think more, you know, I think they have to be more focused on minimizing losses than maximizing gains, you know. So that's probably a good subject for another video. Yeah, you're way over time anyway. So anyway, it's a video. What the hell? Way over time, so I'll put this on the shitty site.